Thanks for checking out the Open Sky Fitness podcast with Rob Dione. Rob is a personal trainer certified by the National Academy of Sports Medicine. He's a corrective exercise specialist and a performance enhancement specialist. Rob is also a level 1 CrossFit instructor, but he is not a doctor. If you got any injuries or medical issues, go see a physician. And when it comes to working out, it's always best to have a trainer watch your technique to get you started. So be careful, don't sue us, and enjoy the podcast. All right, let's do this thing.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Open Sky Fitness Podcast. I'm Rob Dione, and I'm here to tell you that no matter where you are in your life, you can always be healthier. And we're here to help you get there. Okay guys, so if you have questions about your own health and fitness, or if you have questions that you want us to ask our guests for you, write us on Twitter and Instagram at Open Sky Fitness with the hashtag AskOpenSky. You can also email me, Rob at OpenSkyFitness.com, or go to OpenSkyFitness.com and you can leave a voice memo right there on the tab on the right side.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with my lovely wife, Devon.
Hi, guys.
Devon is a holistic nutrition counselor and a gyrotonic instructor here in Los Angeles, and we have a pretty amazing show for you today. We had an interview with a fellow named Jessie Pavelka, and Jesse's actually, well, I'm going to go into it obviously in the show, but Jessie, I know personally. He's one of the owners of RetroFit Gym in WeHo, where I do a lot of my one-on-one personal training. But Jessie is and was a Biggest Loser personal trainer, which gave him a little notoriety in his in the world, but has since then completely changed his philosophies around wellness and the way he approaches fitness, and he's started a company and everything that's like he's kind of like completely changed the way in which he approaches it, which is one of the reasons why I want to bring him on the show. And he's also a super nice, super friendly person, and his and it aligns very much so with the way in which we approach wellness at this point. And but before we jump into that conversation, Devon and I, we're realizing today we're recording this. It's February 2nd. This show will be dropped on February 4th. And can you believe it's already been a month since the new year?
It's true. It's true. We have 11 more months left in the year, and that's it.
That's right. And everyone gets so excited about their New Year's resolutions, and they get all amped up, and every gym is basically packed right now. And I'm curious, how are you doing? How are you doing with your New Year's resolutions? I just posted this actually in the Facebook group, in the Open Sky Fitness Facebook group on Facebook, obviously. and I want to know, is anybody full, still leaning in full throttle, or have you lost a little bit of that momentum?
Or have you forgotten about your New Year's resolutions altogether?
Yeah, or did you even start?
I mean, I think some people write them down. I used to be guilty of this myself, where I'd write down like 5 or 6 New Year's resolutions, and I'm all gung-ho about them, and I maybe do it for the first week. And
that's
then
what I'm
already
saying.
Off. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So then the answer to that question is no, you've lost your momentum. You literally.
I don't think I ever had momentum.
Well, I was reading that there's only about 3% of people actually write down their goals. And I don't think that means New Year's resolution goals. I think a lot of people actually do that. There's probably way more than just 3%. But I think on average, like the person who on average writes down their goals, continues to write goals.
New goals and write new goals as they
that is about 3% of people will do that on a consistent basis.
Such a low percent.
It is a low percent, and I don't know how much of that is actually fact, but I did search online and it did come up as as a study that there's 3% of people actually write down their goals. By the way, right now Devon is adjusting her pants because she's pregnant and she's really uncomfortable.
She's doing 4 weeks.
She's doing 4 weeks, and she's doing this big lean back right now, like trying to get comfortable with her belly like jetting out.
I'm definitely getting this like Braxton Hicks, contraction right now, so it's not the most comfortable.
If Devon is talking and goes silent, it's because she's having a contraction.
Just doing some deep breathing. So,
and that's actually totally normal for anybody that's concerned. It's totally normal, but a month, even 6 months into a pregnancy, to start having contractions. It's normal to have that. It's all women do, and they call it Braxton Hicks is what Devon's referring to, which is just, false contractions. You're not really having a baby yet.
It's practicing. My belly's practicing to push this little guy out.
Your belly's doing crunches right now.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't even have to work for it.
That's right.
Kind of awesome.
Yeah. Devon's got a keg. Not a six-pack, but she's got a keg.
I do.
Okay, so the reason we bring up New Year's is because I think it's really important. I think that there's certain things that are that need to be discussed when it comes to really sticking with your goals. And I think this is important because we are in the beginning of the year. This is the time, February, March is the time people start investing in getting ready for the summer. And if that's your kind of style where you kind of wait it out January, February, and then March, April, May, you kind of gear it up for the summertime. If that's your the way in which you cycle, that's totally fine. But it's just remember, like, if you did have an intention in January to succeed and it failed, there's an opportunity here to look at why.
Yeah, I mean, I think that exactly, and I think that in looking at health and wellness, right? Looking at weight loss, which I think a lot of you that are listening are working towards that, or just keeping yourself on a healthy track in general is one of the hardest things to do. It's like almost much easier in some ways for other goals in life,
Yeah. We get wrapped up in other things. I got to go food shopping. I got to clean the house. I got to watch the kids. I got to take somebody to soccer. Whatever it is, there's a million things that are always on the agenda.
Yeah. And I think that, our health is probably the first thing that kind of goes
on the chopping block.
Yeah.
It's the first thing on.
Yeah. And so our question is like, the question that I had as we were thinking about this podcast is like, how do you continue to move forward to a goal of something like weight loss without having to hit like a rock bottom?
Right. And what
right?
she means by that is like, you didn't just get the diagnosis from your doctor that you have diabetes and you need to change your lifestyle or be taking pills for the rest of your life, which is a big kick in the ass for a lot of people in terms of getting back on track with their health, or actually getting on track with their health, I should say.
Or that you hit your highest weight that you've ever had in your life,
right. You pass over 200 pounds, you pass over 300 pounds, and that sometimes is a rock bottom.
Yeah, depending on the person. Or you talked about like having a breakup.
Yeah,
is a rock bottom.
Going through a divorce, or even I train clients. Sometimes the most motivated they ever are when training with me is when their girlfriend or their boyfriend dumps them. Mm-hmm. And I've actually had clients come to me because their boyfriend or girlfriend just broke up with them, and now they want to get in shape. And it's this thing where I think there's a little bit of and this is where this leads to. What we're looking for here is we need you to find your purpose, your reason for needing to be healthy before the rock bottom hits. And this is a really difficult thing for people because it's hard to keep your health at the priority list of like top 3 or 4 things that you need to continue to do on a daily basis when it feels like so many other things are more important. And we know that it's important for you because you're listening to the show right now. And we know that it's important for you because you've probably been talking about it for years as something you've wanted to accomplish. But what is it that it's attached to? What's your purpose behind it? What's your why behind it? And that's something that you do need to put time in discovering because it needs to be attached to something. It can't. You're not gonna. If you might be able to, like I was alluding to earlier, you might be able to get in shape for the summer, but you're not necessarily any healthier. You're just maybe leaner than you were 3 months earlier, and yes, maybe generally you are healthier, but you're going to probably just fall into that same cycle of every spring you get in better shape, and then you let yourself go once the fall hits. So, what is your why?
And I challenged you, a few minutes ago as we were talking about this of like, what are some examples of that? Like I couldn't think of too many, and it's a hard thing to kind of attach to. And I think one of the things we came up with was, this idea. Well, for me, it started with the thought of growth. And I remember my therapist, Breyer, who we had on a few weeks ago, talking to me at the beginning, like a flower, if it stops growing, it's dying, right? You're just stagnant in life. And is the need for growth a strong enough purpose? Or is it, you know what I mean? Or is it, can you put it into some other words? Like you mentioned, actually putting yourself first. Like the purpose is, I'm going to make myself a priority for once, for now.
Well,
I'm going to start that.
Yeah. And I look at it like this. If you want to learn how to play the piano, or if you want to learn how to play guitar, or if you want to get really good if you want to learn how to fly an airplane or drive a race car, right? I liken that to health, to learning how to be healthy. And you can't, like, you say, like, what's your why behind learning how to play guitar? Because I really want to learn how to play guitar, and I think it'd be fun, right? And that's can be strong enough because I've always wanted that. I've always wanted that, and I have this. I like music. I have this affinity towards music. I want to be able to create music, or at least play music, and enjoy that with my family and share that with my friends.
And how many times have you said that? I've always wanted to be healthy. I've always wanted to feel good in my body. I've always wanted to feel good in a bathing suit. Right.
So how do you kind of attach your health to the thing that you've always wanted to do and then create a practice around it? You're not going to get good at playing an instrument unless you literally put time in every single day, or at least a few times a week. I mean, if you could practice playing the guitar 3 times a week and get pretty damn good at it. Maybe you're not going to be playing any kind of like Carnegie Halls, but you will be able to play with your friends and your family and entertain some people, and people will look up to you and go, "Oh my God, look, how did you learn how to play guitar like that?" Well, you put in some time and you found joy around it, and you created a lifestyle around playing guitar that you started meeting people that play guitar. You started going to maybe some classes. Maybe you would go to like some, we were in Hawaii, and there was a ukulele group that meets once a week in different locations all over the world. And it's like this organization, and literally they get together. And at the time we were there, it was the holidays. They were playing Christmas songs.
Yeah. And some of them were good, and some of them weren't all that great yet.
Yeah.
And they were all probably in their 70s or above.
And there's running groups, and there's meetup groups for going for walks, for races, for workouts. There's all kinds of things. And if you just get started on finding the passion, the why, the purpose behind it for yourself, because you really do want this, something you've always wanted to do, you need to create a practice around it.
And I think that's so important. And I think anybody that's listened to a little kid, and I was one of those kids. I played the violin from the time I was in 3rd grade until I graduated high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I was terrible at first, right? It's not like you pick up a violin and you all of a sudden can play scales perfectly and, Mary Had a Little Lamb perfectly at the start, or, much less Mozart or, Handel. And it's like, so you hear a little kid practicing and you see it in movies, right? The parents are like, cringing at every sound. But then a couple years later, they actually have, this really beautiful sound coming out of their instrument.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to I love this analogy for that reason that, we always think too, like if you make a decision towards your health that you have to be perfect right away, or that you can't ever fall off the wagon, or that you can't ever eat a chocolate chip cookie and get back on. You've just all of a sudden failed completely. Well, that's not how it works with an instrument, or you'll never learn to play.
Right.
You're going to continuously fail. You're going to hit bad notes all the time, and the point is what Rob's making is that it becomes a daily thing that you commit to for yourself, for your growth.
Right.
And
you're not being healthy. I mean, look, you can attach your health to other people, wanting to live longer for your kids, wanting to live longer for your spouse. But the reality is it has to really be rooted in you, and it has to bring you joy. You have to allow it to bring you joy. And if you're not truly finding and trying to find the thing around being healthy that you love, then you're always going to be pushing up against it. It's like going to school when you hate going to school. You're not going to want to show up, and nobody's going to force you. Nobody's forcing you to be healthy. That's, everybody wants that. And that's why really wealthy people hire people like us to basically be the accountability for them.
Well, that's, kind of what I was going to say. I was thinking about this as well. Like if, once you find what is joyful about it, right? Once you find what that purpose is, that it's in a positive light, right? And and you feel like you may not be able to stick to it, like maybe that's just your thing is accountability, that's when you want to hire somebody.
Yeah.
And or, my friend Kristen and I, we wanted to kind of work on our finances, and neither of us were doing it. So we became accountability partners. So finding a friend that we talked to at that time twice a week and completely changed our financial life around.
Yeah.
And we committed to that. I think we started for 3 months, and it ended up being at least a year and a half that we talked about twice a week, every week. And that kept me motivated. And on the weeks, and there were weeks that I did nothing towards it, what I was supposed to do. Like we'd make goals and I did nothing. And then I'd have to talk about it. I have to be responsible for it with somebody.
Yeah.
And it became really fun with us, so.
And you got a lot done that year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you made some really big leaps forward with our finances and such that year because you were really active. You were taking a proactive approach to your own finances rather than just taking a back seat, which is what a lot of people do with their health. They wait around until their doctor tells them there's an issue, or their girlfriend breaks up with them.
Yeah, but the point is like I couldn't do it on my own. I didn't do it on my own. I wanted to do it on my own, but I had to have Kristen there to weekly or twice a week to keep me in line, to keep me accountable.
Yeah.
And so you can either pay somebody to do that, or you can find somebody that's more positive.
A workout buddy.
Or you can find a workout buddy.
Yeah.
Or you can find somebody that you just talk to weekly about what food you cooked this week, what food you ate, and just be really honest with each other and acknowledge where you failed, acknowledge where you succeeded, and get it out there and move on.
Yeah, I just recently joined the Nextdoor app, and one of the posts in there over the New Year's was this woman said, I want to create in our neighborhood, I want to create a weight loss group. And she had over 100 comments of people saying they were interested or having questions. And I think at this point, out of the 100 comments, she has over 20 people in this weight loss group. And this is within a stone throw in my neighborhood of just people that are interested in losing weight. And I guarantee you those people, maybe not every single one of them will succeed. But with that amount of people in there and the amount of drive behind it, because there's so many people motivated to succeed, I have a feeling they're going to do fairly well. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going to make some progress as a whole within that community. Yeah. And that's free. That's something that woman put out there because that's something she wanted, and she invited people to do it with her.
Yeah. And I think it's great. And I think, kind of going back and kind of wrapping this up together, I think the first step is just, creating that joy of purpose around what your goal is.
Yeah.
And secondly, believing that you can do it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And figuring out who can help you do it.
Yeah.
Right? Not feeling like you have to do it on your own.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
And the people that surround you have to believe you can do it too. And that's a big, big thing, because if you want to believe it, but you're not 100% sure, and the person that you love the most or the people that you surround yourself with definitely don't believe it, you're going to fall back. You're not gonna magically become successful at this.
Yeah, and that is so important. We're doing a home birth this time, and but even
really,
but even I'm telling them, not you. You've already agreed. But even with our first birth with Charlie, we knew that we didn't want to do any medication. Unless it was necessary, like we were open to it if it was necessary. So, but it was really important to us in picking and choosing who was going to be at our birth, that they were very supportive of
our choices.
Yeah, our choices and a natural birth. And there was, a couple of people that I think really were upset that I didn't invite them. And it's because I knew they would start to question when I was in pain, like, why don't you just take the epidural? What's wrong with you? And that's not what we wanted for this. That wasn't our decisions. And so I just had to politely say, thank you so much for wanting to come. We have enough people, you know.
We got all the help we need.
Yeah. But it's important, because the moment that you're in self-doubt, if you have somebody else
who doubts you,
you're going to go, oh, I can't move forward on this. I mean, even so-and-so agrees with me. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So you need to,
align yourself.
Yeah. Find the people that are going to really help and support you and motivate you rather than keep you in the place that you are. Right.
I think there is, if you feel like you're a part of a pity party when you're creating your support group, if those people at that what the hell's it called? The Nextdoor app. If those people in that community, in that group got together, those 20 people got together and people were just like, oh, it's been so hard for me to get healthy. It's hard for me to do this. That's immediately the group is dead. Because that's a negative way of looking at it. Goes, if somebody, the way it needs to go is somebody has to say, and basically everybody has to say, I have struggled in the past with my health, but I'm dedicated and I'm determined to achieve this now. And I know and I believe deep down that I can be healthy and that I can lose weight. And I'm going to do everything in my power moving forward to do this and to achieve this. And I'm not going to make any excuses, and I'm going to make this happen for me. And if everybody else is with me, let's fucking do this together. And that's what you need. That's the thought that's what has to be happening in your head, because if you doubt that you can achieve it, you will not be able to achieve it.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So I think that's good. I think we're ready to move on.
Good pep talk.
Good pep talk. Go out and get him, kid.
Go get him.
All right. Let's jump into this conversation with Jessie Pavelka.
Yeah, testing 1 2 1 2, testing 1 2.
Got a boomy voice, my friend.
Do I? Should I back up?
No,
you just adjust.
Don't.
You've got a boomy voice, though. You've got a good voice.
Adjust. Let me adjust.
You've got a good
radio
voice. Well, I'll try. Under these circumstances, I'll try to be as authentic as possible.
These circumstances. Yeah, this very high tense circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. So I am standing here with Jessie Pavelka. I'm saying that correctly. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Jessie
great.
Pavelka.
I just want to make So Jessie and I have known each other for probably about 3 years plus.
Yeah.
I work out of a gym that Jessie co-owns with buddy Rob. And it's RetroFit in West Hollywood, so you guys should check it out if you can. But anyway, Jessie and I, we shot the shit 3 years ago or so.
Right when we met. We
talked about having you on the show at the time.
Yes.
And life got crazy. No, it didn't work out.
Yeah, but here we are.
Now we're here. You back in the day, you were kind of running around trying to get the gym going, and also you travel back and forth to the UK because you have a business going on there. And it seems like you're just always doing things.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You just kind of
just on airplanes.
Yeah,
basically.
That's what it seems like. You're a jet setter. Okay, let's just give people a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, because you are a personal trainer. You kind of fit into the category of celebrity personal trainer. You've also been on TV shows as a trainer, helping people lose lots and lots of weight. But now you've moved into a little more corporate setting where you're helping people on a larger scale. So give us a little bit of a background, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of started out as your typical trainer. I was really big on the exterior. I was good at transformation from a physical standpoint. So I had all the equations worked out, especially the old school equations. The black and white: 3,500 calories equal 1 pound of weight. Create a deficit of 500 calories a day to lose a pound a week. The kind of increasing the basal metabolic rate, increasing your protein intake. And so for me, the science bit or the equation piece to training was what was my approach. And so I had a lot of people come to me that wanted to lose the last 10 pounds. I had people come to me that just wanted to socialize. I had that as well. But it kind of, my early days as a trainer, there was a piece of it missing for me. Right. I loved helping people. There was something about it that I loved. I love business too. And at that time, my business was trying to help people. Now, the problem was, whenever you're getting a person to come in to lose 10 pounds for summer, there's a little bit of kind of meaning and purpose that is not there.
Yeah.
There's a weight to it that doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah.
And so I went on my own journey. In 2 years into my career, I met up with another trainer and we started a business. It was called Fit for You. We were really cheesy. We had Fit for You logo T-shirts. We were rocking it. It was my very first business, and so I was really excited. But what was really cool was we specialized in weight loss, extreme weight loss. We teamed up with a gastric bypass physician who would refer his patients to me pre and post op. But where it really started for me was I showed up to a meeting one day through a client, and I sat down in this meeting and I and I listened to each person share. Now, I had no idea what this meeting was, but each person was talking about struggles in their lives, struggles with food, struggles with just life in general, right?
Yeah.
I was there to transform bodies. But I went into this meeting open-minded. I left the meeting and was just kind of shell-shocked. It was an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. And they invited me in to just listen to kind of what was going on in their world, to get to know the people, and then provide my solution. So I started working with a few people in that group, and that started my journey. So my training up to that point was just kind of, it was just your day-to-day training. It wasn't, there was a piece of it missing. And I think when I was introduced to this group of people, it for me kind of, it was the missing piece for me. And I fell in love with my job at that point. And so I trained people that needed to lose excessive amounts of weight, anywhere from 200 pounds, 250 pounds. There were some people that just needed to lose 50 pounds. But it just opened up my mind and my heart to a new approach. Now, that it wasn't a straight line for me by any means. I had to go on my own journey with health, what it meant for me, right? I had to redefine what healthy was, because it wasn't just, the equations. It wasn't 3,500 calories equal 1 pound of weight. It was much more than that. It was about how you felt. It was about those tiny actions that you took on a day-to-day basis to feel good, right? It wasn't just about showing up in the gym. It was about how you showed up in life. And so I got curious. I got to know the people that needed it most. And I got to know myself a bit more along the way. And now I work with people in all different capacities. I work in the corporate world, as you highlighted at the beginning of this. And I help people with all forms of weight, I say, right? There's the physical weight. People need to lose physical weight, but they also need to lose emotional weight. They need to lose stress weight. There's a variety of weight that we all carry around, and I like to focus on that kind of weight loss.
It's interesting because I think that when you have a client approach you, and I feel like this too, when you're talking about the summertime, weight loss, that 10 pounds or something like that people want to come to you because they just want to look shredded for the summer or their wedding or whatever the event is. There is a little bit of like a lack of I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it matters all that much.
You feel like they're missing something, right?
Yeah.
And you want to shake them and be like, "Wake up! There's more to this."
Yeah,
and
right.
that's what I was experiencing. It was like, we're not doing this right. Like you and I, we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more you and I need to work on in this relationship. The client-trainer relationship. But you can't force people to wake up, right? Yeah. The best way is to just say, "This is what I do. I like working with people on a deeper level. If you're interested in that, come to me."
Right.
And the people that want to show up, right? The people that are interested in going a bit deeper than the calorie or the pound, that are more interested than the six pack or getting ready for summer, they gravitate to you because you offer something that's unique, something that speaks to them. And I think that's where it got interesting for me when I said, I help people that need it, right? They need to lose a significant amount of weight. And all of a sudden people came to me for that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I think that as new clients would come to me, I definitely steer clear of the ones that want to just, they want a workout program for 3 months and they want to just know what to eat for, the next 3 months in order to achieve that goal. And there's no reward in it, I think, and that's, I think, what you're getting at. It doesn't feel rewarding as a trainer, as a coach, to basically just give people that piece of the puzzle when there's so much more to it. Yeah. And I'd love to dive into these, and I want to get into the conversation about the difference between those people mentally, because I think that that's a really strong piece of this. But you have these 4 elements that you talk about, and I think let's lay the foundation for those now so we can kind of dive in and touch on all of them throughout this conversation.
Excellent. Yeah, so I think there's a logical side to being healthy, and I think it's the one that most of us appreciate, and it's the approach that most of us use, right? It's the science, the research backed, the logical side of health, and it's nutrition and exercise. It's the form that we believe in, that we understand, we can quantify it, we can measure it, so it is truth. But there's more to it than that, right? So I have 4 elements, and the first 2 are eat and sweat. And if we look at those from the logical standpoint, we can fulfill that need.
Where do those fit on the periodic table?
Those 2 elements, right, at the very top, of course. No, they're the ones that most people understand. And whenever I'm working with an individual, that's the entry point. It's like, this is a language that you understand. Let's start here. Yeah. Nutrition and
exercise. This is what you see all over Instagram, all over Facebook. This is what you see marketed to each individual person.
Yes.
This is the stuff that everybody gets bombarded with.
This is familiar to you. But see, the journey that I want to take them on is, here's what's familiar to you, but let's go a little bit deeper with it, right?
Yeah.
Let's go beyond the calorie. What happens when you show up in the kitchen and you make a decision that you feel good about?
Yeah.
That relationship that you create with the self is what's more important than that calorie.
Right.
And so the journey that I try to take people on is, let's go beyond the quantifiable evidence and get into feeling, right? Let's see how you feel when you show up for yourself around nutrition and exercise. When you go in the gym and you really push it, right? When you meet new thresholds, when you push past limitations, what does that feel like?
Yeah.
Let's create that strong relationship with the self through that such a familiar form of health, right? Through nutrition and exercise. So just getting people to become more aware of how they feel in relation to nutrition and exercise is a great way to take it a bit deeper. Now, the two elements that I've already talked about are eat and sweat. That's nutrition and exercise. There's two other elements that really are a game changer, in my opinion. And it's nothing new. I know that I think you have four pillars.
4 pillars, but I don't necessarily, this was something in terms of because we had a conversation about it. I think the 4 pillars exist within, and it's actually on my coaching page online, but it's not like it's something that we are constantly hammering.
Right.
But it's built into everything that we're doing. We just don't highlight it in a way that we're constantly discussing it as if.
I think a lot of people do it unconsciously, right? They embrace these 4 pillars or 4 elements, depending on which program they're using, the Jessie Pavelka program or the
Open Sky Fitness.
Yeah, exactly. But what changes the game, in my opinion, is when you bring in mental and emotional health, spiritual health, social health, and you really look at those parts of your life that fall under the same hood as nutrition and exercise, right? We tend to compartmentalize our well-being routines. Like my nutrition and exercise lives over here, and mental health, that's over in the corner. And I only do that with a therapist, right? What's really exciting.
And then I don't open that up to my friends. I don't open that up to my family.
That's just mine, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think we're in a place now in society where it's like, actually, each and every day I have an opportunity to exercise mental and emotional health. And I can communicate that, right? It's not something I have to do in isolation. I don't have to be ashamed of it. The stigmas no longer exist, or at least they still exist. They don't have the same impact that they had before. And so think and connect are very much about focusing on that part of your life, right? It's really just
So is the think and connect, is that the element?
They're 2 different elements.
Okay,
right?
got it.
So think is about mental and emotional health, right? It's about paying attention. It's about bringing mindfulness into your life, but it's also about like strengthening your focus, being more positive, right? So positive psychology comes into the equation, right? Doing affirmations, gratitude, putting pen to paper, reading. These are all things that support mental health.
Yeah.
And so, whenever I'm working with an individual, there are suggestions depending on the individual, to do more reading and writing, right? To do 5 minutes of breath work in the morning or 5 minutes of breath work in the evening, to take a moment and use your 5 senses to connect to mindfulness, right? Because our 5 senses bring us into the moment. So there's a lot of different ways we can bring the think element into our day-to-day life so that it doesn't live in the corner in the darkness. It's out in the open, right?
Yeah.
And then the connect element, and this is the 4th element. For me, this was the most important in my life.
Okay.
Is really about the connection to the self. And the way I break it down is there are 4 points of connection. The connection to the self is created whenever we're taking care of ourselves. Go back to eat and sweat. If I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising every day and I'm doing my breathing exercise in the morning, and I'm sitting down with my children at the dinner table and having a real conversation with them, my connection to me, to the self, is strong. Like I feel good, right? You don't take care of yourself and say life sucks, right? It's like,
right.
I did everything I needed to do today to feel good about myself, right? So the connection to the self is the first point.
Yeah.
Connection to another person is the second point. Now that's like you and I right now. The idea when we look at connection to another person is to lead with service, right? So get out of the self and into service, or lead with vulnerability in some way. So if you aren't good, you're struggling, being strong enough and aware enough to say, I don't got this right now and I need help and support, right? So vulnerability is at the core, but also service. The other side of it, going back to the service piece, is if someone is struggling, right, and you can be of service to them, going up and saying, hey, I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately. How can I help? How can I support? And just having that awareness and being bold enough to embrace that vulnerability and bring it to the table, bring it to the conversation, and not just say, that, because whenever you get outside of yourself, even if you're not the one struggling, it requires vulnerability, right? To speak up and say, man, are you okay?
Yeah.
Right. That's a really, it's a it's a vulnerable position for both.
Yeah.
And the exchange goes.
There's power in the vulnerability.
There is.
There really is. I mean, just having that openness to allow someone in to see what's truly happening with you. So many of us are just walking around with these protective walls around us, trying to make sure, like, how you doing? Great. Everything's amazing. Yeah, exactly. And so this is a really not a new concept for a lot of people, but I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle that if you're ignoring it and have been for years and years and years, you're gonna want to start pulling away those layers.
And I think for a lot of people, conceptually they get it, but putting it into practice is a different story, because that requires strength, right? That requires a different type of strength.
And practice.
It practice as well, because I mean, getting outside of yourself, if you're not used to it, can be really uncomfortable, especially if you're a person who's consumed by self, right? Whether it's you struggling, going through something within yourself, or if someone else is going through something, not giving them the attention that they deserve. So putting vulnerability into practice is very foreign for people. So I think conceptually we get it, but then putting it into routine is kind of the next action. Right?
It's so funny because we talk about therapy on this show quite a bit, and I go to therapy, and I think it's really huge piece of the puzzle. And I say that to my therapist so often, like, I get this shit. I get it.
Yeah.
Like I get it. It makes so much sense to me. Logically, it makes sense. Conceptually, it makes sense, but then in making that a part of like how I interact and how I, and a part of the way in which I run my life. And I was literally talking to Devon about this on Saturday night. I'm going through a huge transition in my life, baby in my life.
Right.
Devon and I are kind of figuring out how we want our careers and our lifestyle to look alongside having a child, and basically,
it's exciting.
It's very exciting, and it really and truly is. It's scary as fuck, but very, very exciting. But it's at this point, I'm realizing that I'm at a turning point. I'm at a real kind of transition, but I think I'm in a much better, because the vulnerability is there and because I'm talking about it way more than I guess I normally would. The transition is happening a lot faster, and it's kind of scary because it feels like you're almost off rails slightly. Yeah,
it's like you're stepping into a new identity, right? Yeah. It's like, shit, this is foreign to me. I'm going off the cliff into the unknown.
Yeah,
right?
and you have to have the vulnerability. You have to have the trust, the faith that you are going to be okay, and that you are an adult enough or knowledgeable enough or smart enough to figure it out going into the unknown and figuring out like who am I that person? Who am I, this new person in this new kind of place? Yeah. And it is amazing, but again, it comes back to, I think, really being present. Yeah. And I think that's what you were getting at earlier, was like this not only being present with the people around you, right, which is not saying I'm great, everything's okay, but really being present, but also then in the way in which to actually have not a legitimate, but like and we keep using the word vulnerable response to that, is actually look within yourself and say, what's truly happening with me right now, and being open enough to acknowledge that. Yeah, it's a big thing.
It
right?
is.
I think
it doesn't have to be, but I think for most of us, and I know for me, when I kind of started to embrace this whole idea of like a real exchange in a relationship, where it's like, I'm going to reveal something about me, right? Something I'm going through, and I'm going to see how you handle it. That to me was terrifying. And you brought up a good point, right? There's vulnerability, and the knock-on effect, if handled properly, is trust, right? Yeah. Trust for me was a mother. I'll beat.
You can say fucker.
Fucker.
Yeah.
And so I had to really, and I still struggle with it, right? Yeah. I'm naturally programmed to kind of like be a bit guarded just from things in my parents divorcing, everything else. It was a trigger for me, right? So there were traumas that I went through. So trust was a really hard concept for me to embrace. So my journey, stepping outside of eat and sweat, was very much like putting think and connect into practice for myself and seeing what it was like you said, stepping off into the unknown and embracing this new way. Yeah. Who do I want to be in this situation? Not who am I? Who do I want to be in this situation? Yeah. And Think and Connect allowed me to really show up in various parts of my life that I wasn't showing up properly. Yeah. And taking a look at myself and ask myself that question: who do I want to be?
I'm curious about this.
I'll finish up Connect for you really quick.
Go, please.
Because I think it's important, and I want to make sure I do.
Yeah. I just get curious throughout
this. You've got connection to the self, which is one thing. And I like to say, like, relationships at home home, with your children, with your partner, with your dear friends. The key is to create like a deep connection. You do that through vulnerability. Through that, you gain that trust. So that's connection to another person. Then there's connection to a group, right?
Oh, okay.
And that's multiple people, obviously, right? In the corporate world, you've got teams, you've got people that rely on you and that you rely on. And so bringing that element into the corporate world has been fascinating, because what we have found is whenever we induce connection, like if we say, let's sit down and have a real conversation about who you are, all of a sudden what happens in that team dynamic is, wow, I didn't know that about that person. Right? It's like, oh, so now I know, like when you're feeling overwhelmed, that you respond that way because of that.
Yeah.
Or, that certain parts of your life have been really challenging and I shouldn't push so hard.
Yeah.
And it just gives people an idea of each other and how each other functions. So looking at the connection to a group, that's your team at home, but that's also your team at work. And going back to the connection to another person, you treat it the same way. Lead with vulnerability, right? Get to know people and lead with service, like get out of the self and into service.
Yeah.
So it's the same as connection to another person. Fourth point of connection, this is where kind of spirituality comes into the equation. And it was my experience that whenever I started to add meaning to the food that I was eating, meaning to my motion with exercise, whenever I brought the think element into my life and really focused on my inward journey, like my inward life, I naturally opened up to this new idea of spirituality. I always considered myself spiritual, right? But it was just kind of like, I was raised Catholic, I'm spiritual, right? I was baptized. So, but it was just like, it was a throwaway. It wasn't a real, there was no conviction in it. Mm-hmm. And I went on my own personal journey. And what I found was the connection to something greater than you is extremely important. And it's not for everybody. And I get that, but the connection to something greater than you is that thing that holds you accountable. It also is that thing that reminds you on those, what the fuck is going on days, that your issue is not as big as it seems. And it puts things into perspective. So the fourth point of connection for me in my life was really important. And that's the connection to something greater than you. You see it in fellowships, like AA. There's a big emphasis on a higher power. You see it in all fellowships. And I find that it's a very powerful tool for people, but it scares people away, right? It's like, oh, it's religion, right? No, it's not religion. It's like something you get to create in your own life. Mm-hmm. It's just a feeling that you get to create for yourself, an experience you get to create for yourself through your routine. That puts things into perspective, and it allows you to feel as though you're not alone. And so the connection to something greater is really key.
Yeah, and I think that is that's it. I think it is something that people definitely shy away from, and for myself, I definitely shy away from it as well. Like I don't necessarily think of my connection to like some kind of higher power or something greater than myself, as much as kind of I think where I think I'm going in my learning is, and whether or not it's something that people can do as well, but for some reason I think it's a little bit harder of a journey. Is to come to the understanding that none of this necessarily means anything. And it's a hard a hard pill to swallow, but a lot of the time we add meaning to a lot of stuff.
Give it too much.
We give things, just everything has to have meaning. Yeah. Right. And so I think when you're talking about a higher power, it's like, well, it's just that trust. It's that trust in that there's something greater. So therefore I don't have to necessarily understand that it doesn't mean anything as much. Like, and here's an example. Like, there's the story of Job, right? Where like everything constantly happens to this guy and he never breaks his faith because his faith is attached to a higher power. Right. It doesn't mean anything to him. It's not like he's being punished, even though he was being punished. He doesn't view it as a punishment. Right. It's the test of, okay, this is who I am. And every time something new comes my way, I'm going to stay on path. I'm not going to break my values or my position. Right. And so I think if you can use that faith or that, like keeping an eye on the higher power, you can use that, or this is where I've been leaning a little more, is just, you can say, okay, so shit happens, bad things happen. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean anybody's out to get me. It doesn't mean that I'm stupid or I'm not smart enough or that, like my life is going to spiral out of control. It just is the situation as is. Yeah. And I can choose, and I think this is the whole point of it. Your only thing you have control over is the way in which you respond to all of this. Yeah. And so that's kind of like, I think, the two sides of that coin for me.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. And I think the context that you're referring to, it absolutely makes sense. I think there's a certain point, it's been my experience, right, where my self-will will get me so far.
Yeah.
Right. And when my self-will has been matched by a greater force and I can't go any further, and that might be in a business venture, that might be in, a relationship challenge of some kind. Like my self-will has gotten me to this point. And now I've got to find something new because I'm not going anywhere, right? Like there's got to be some kind of shift that happens. And for me, what I do is I give up my own will. And in that moment, like I get to connect to something different, right? Something greater. And I'm just going to put it into perspective for you so you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
You and I both have children.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Whenever my son was born, right, I thought I knew what love was. Like I was like, I know what love is. Like I get it. Conceptually, I get it.
Yeah.
When he was born, there was a totally different experience. There was a part of me that opened up that I didn't even know I had. It completely changed me. And I couldn't communicate it. Like people would ask, what was it like when he was born? What's it like being a dad? And I'm like, it's the greatest thing in the world. Like nothing in my life is as exciting and the feeling that I get from him as he grows, as I experience new versions of him, are just way bigger than me. And so I identify the love for my son as something greater than me.
Yeah.
That's not religion.
Yep.
That's not something that, that makes me feel as though I have to follow certain guidelines. That's something I can connect to in any given moment and be like, okay. So in that moment when my self-will has gotten me as far as it can, and I've got to let go and put things into perspective and give it up to something else, I can think about that. I can think about that experience. Yeah. And there's just this ease that falls over me.
It's so funny because I have exactly that same experience. I have that exact same experience, and people ask me like, "What's it like?" And I the way that I describe it is, I say, you remember, and it's almost like a childish love. Like, remember when you were like, I would fall in love when I was a kid, or I would have like these experiences of like just being so overjoyed as a child. Yeah. It's different as an adult. You don't really get that as much, but you remember when you got, and this is kind of how I liken having a kid. You remember when you got that, like the Christmas gift that you wanted, or that gift that you wanted so badly, and you finally got it. And every day you would play with this thing, but sometimes you had to go to school. But while you're at school, it's the only thing you think about. And you just like, you can't wait to get home and like play with this thing. And then it's so exciting. And every time you come home, it's like, it's that experience, it feels like, but never ending.
Continuous, because it's always changing.
But never ending, because the present always is always getting better.
Yeah.
In a way. And that's kind of how it feels. And I agree with you. I think, even when I'm having tough times, and I'm curious, like, where that was for you, that kind of, that higher power for you before you had your son, was it as easy to connect to? Because I find that having Charlie is way easier for me to connect to than any other higher power ever. Yeah. And even, my relationship with Devon, we've been together almost 20 years. Like, I get that. It's like, you think that you know what love is, but until you basically have something that you would basically give your life for in a heartbeat, you kind of don't really get it. Yeah. And some people are going, I don't have kids. Fuck you. Like I know it, I know what love is. Well, sure. You know what love is, and that's fine.
It's not for everybody, right?
It's not necessarily for everybody. Right. I think and some people have kids and they do not have that experience.
But let me ask you this. Let's use Mother Nature as a similar experience. There have been, I mean, even just getting out and, we live fairly close to the ocean, getting out to the ocean and just bringing your worries to that. It's like, those aren't allowed here, right? Like leave all that shit behind because it's so much bigger than you. Yeah. And so for me, that's something that I identify as something greater than me as well. Yeah. Like Mother Nature, getting out into nature. I know that there's a lot, like you've got to travel to get to really good nature in Los Angeles, but when in it, it's like, this is what I needed, right? It's like a reset button. And so for me, that's something greater than me. Yeah. Now, you brought up something and I wanted to touch on it, and I can't. We'll have to come back to it if it comes. We'll eventually. I'm sure this isn't the first time this has happened.
No, I do it all the time. I do it all the time. But let's talk about, I'm curious. about the way you discovered this. You earlier talked about the Overeaters Anonymous. What was it?
Yeah, that was my kind of entry.
This is the entry point, right?
Yeah.
So as you started to learn in that sense, because people are listening and they're kind of going, okay, I get this. There's the four elements, but there's certain vocabulary I think that people are using early, when they're starting to kind of get on this journey.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to when you started listening to these Overeaters Anonymous.
Yeah.
And what was coming up for these people that seemed like it was like, oh, I found my path? What was it about that conversation that, I don't know if you can dig into that, if you have that kind of memory, or maybe talk us through some of this, like what was happening in your mind. Like, why was it so intriguing to you? Were you like, oh wait, now this is why I'm actually interested in being healthy, or health and fitness?
Yeah. I think anybody in that situation, right? There's a real, there's a do or die mentality that comes along with it, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just show up there and have a good time, right? It's not just, let's just sit down and have a chat. It's like, let's sit down and go to those places you don't want to go, right? Let's push some buttons here. Let's hit some pressure points and see what comes out. And I was inspired by that. Not only look, I get that it's not for everybody.
Like a willingness to go there.
There's just this openness and willingness to look at your whole life, right? Not just nutrition. Because it's easy for someone struggling with weight to say, I've got an issue with food. I'm lazy. It's like, fuck that. You're getting hung up. You're getting distracted, actually. Let's look at you, right? Let's look at who you are as a human being.
Scares the shit out of people.
Scary, but God, that's where the work is, right?
Yeah.
Let's go there so we can actually find solutions.
Yeah.
And so I saw the potential in that for myself as well, right? So we all have struggles, right? I've had my own. Mental and emotional health has not always been the best. I've always had an outlet, right? I always had sports. I always had the gym and nutrition to support a healthy lifestyle.
Well, it's almost like if you have those, sometimes I likened it to like a table, right? So if there's four legs of the table, those are your four elements. If one is, so you can have two that are really strong, your nutrition and your fitness, and then you can have one that's mediocre. Maybe that's maybe
non-existent.
Yeah. Or one that's not, so the thing's going to fucking wobble, and it's not going to feel sturdy, but at least you got two that are solid, so how do you, that's the way that I kind of like it.
I love that analogy, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think I had two legs on a four-leg table.
Yeah.
And so, through working with people in that capacity that wanted to go beyond the gym, go beyond the plate and really look at their lives, I got curious, and I did the same for myself. And, I've always been interested in struggle, and I don't know why. I just have been. And it's probably for myself, right? Just listening to how different people found success, listening to different people's stories, what their struggles were, and what the solution was for them. That's something that I've always been interested in. I love inspirational stories. I love being a part of inspirational stories, right? Knowing that I've been able to help an individual get from point A to point B. I love that process.
Yeah.
It was part of my journey to go through that as well. And so I would say, while working with individuals, I also created some awareness in my own life. And it's like, you know what? I'm actually doing some shit that's not good either, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not showing up and engaging in the world in a way that I feel good about, right? Like either I'm negative, I'm relationships aren't like, there's no substance to the relationships. I'm not honoring my feelings. Like there were certain things that I was doing that wasn't good. And I think it's really easy. And again, going back to a person struggling with weight, it's easy to get hung up on food and lack of exercise. I mean, for me, it was like I could get hung up on, well, it's that person's fault, right? It's not mine. Or, it's situational. It's not. Nothing can be wrong with me.
Yeah. What can I do? My wife keeps bringing home McDonald's, or
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like when you really look at it, and this was where it got exciting for me in my own journey, was when I really looked at it, I saw some massive gaps, and I was willing to go on my own journey. And that was because of the people I was working with. That was because of the people I invited into my life and that invited me into their lives.
Yeah.
And going back to, this whole vulnerability and trust piece, I mean, when you're helping another individual, when you're being of service, there's this two-way street, right? It's not like you're just helping them. Like, they're giving you a shitload in return. And that was my experience. When I was showing up and being of service to these individuals that really needed it, they were giving me knowledge that I did not have. They were communicating in ways that I didn't understand, but I sat there and I listened.
Yeah.
And so it opened me up to a new way of approaching my own life. And,
right.
And I'm really grateful. And it's still a journey, as you know, right? It's like
it never ends.
But how fucking cool is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how fucking cool is that this journey doesn't end. There is no finish line. And I get to increase my knowledge and understanding of the world, of people. That to me is like the ultimate. That to me is incredible. And then you run like the business side along. Like, I love business as well. Yeah. You run that in parallel. Like, I love it. I love the fact that I get to help people, and that's my life. That's my business. Yeah. And it's a journey that I get to go on, a parallel journey that I get to go on.
Does it bother you when you are, hanging out on social media and stuff, and there's
social media.
And there's so much, well, there's just such a dogmatic approach to being healthy that it seems so anti-functional, right? It doesn't seem like it's really helping people as much as stressing the fuck out, stressing them out, because people think that they have to either eat a certain way or work out a certain way or, run their life in a certain way. Otherwise, they're somewhat a failure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of noise and distraction out there. Yeah. And I think a lot of us want to be distracted, right? Going back to, like, it takes work to go to those places you don't want to go. So why don't we just go look at some workouts and like listen to this sexy individual talk about nutrition. Right. Like, that's a total distraction. And I think what we need to do is actually look at ourselves. Yeah. So the idea that, like, I can go on Instagram and I can find tons of workouts, I can find tons of nutrition plans, but if I'm an individual that's not going to look at myself, I'm not going to do any of that shit. Right. And so,
or you might do it, but on the other end of it, you might be 5% body fat. You're still the same person.
Yes. So that's the other part of it too, right? You might be really successful, but you only got two legs on your table. Right. And so I think, but I will say this, I think that we as a society are in a really exciting time. I think people are more interested in what works now than they have been before. We've seen failure upon failure upon failure with mental health, with weight loss, and it's all a side effect of mental health. Let's be honest, right? Like, people, it's not a physical issue. It's actually mental health issue. Yeah. And it's a social issue, right? It's the way that we make people feel, because a society, if you don't look this way, then you suck. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of different areas of the world that really cause the issue. It's part of it's social media, part of it's just society as a whole, and part of it's the individual not taking ownership. Right. And so I think there's this real need to be awake now more than ever. Yeah. And be willing to go to those places you don't want to go. Find those people that have done it and done it well, and just get curious. Ask them how they did it. Yeah. Right. So,
well, how would you, if you were to approach social media, the just media in general, the whole entire fitness world or the health and wellness world, let's just lump it into that rather than fitness and nutrition, right? The wellness world. Yeah. If you were to kind of start to fix it or give somebody the advice on how to approach it, would you have any specific advice in that way?
So if we
look from a healthy aspect, because there's so much information.
Yeah, I would say simplify.
Okay.
Make it simple, clear, and focused, right? That's actually with our business, with my business, Pavelka. Yeah. Those are our three principles: simple, clear, and focused. Yeah. Or values. And I think that society as a whole, when it comes to health,
we're overdoing so much of this shit.
It's sensory overload. Like, on every level.
Yeah, I don't think that I can't remember if it was I was talking to you about it the other day or somebody, but like, what's happening with Dave Asbury and Ben Greenfield and all these other fitness pros that are in this or some kind of like health pros are making things so unbelievably complicated. And the millennials love making things complicated. They love like being very, very specific, and that's cool. school, in your 20s, maybe even into your 30s, because you could just be like, you can get away with it because, you're just, but then there's so much. I think what we're really getting at is like, if you're not okay with yourself, if you haven't kind of like done the work emotionally and mentally for yourself, you're going to eventually, no matter how many marathons, triathlons, bodybuilding competitions, whatever it is, whatever your fitness goals are, you're going to be that same person on the other side. But we get so wrapped up because there's so much information out there that we get so wrapped up in like having to do it the perfect way that no matter what fucking decision we make, we feel like we're making the wrong one because there's somebody else telling us that that's wrong and that there's a better way to do it, and it never fucking ends.
Yeah, you're absolutely. I think another part, like if we could profile the majority of people in the world, especially the people on social media and everything else, into one person, it would be that person that just wants information, right? And not closing the gap between information and action. And so I think by simplifying, by creating more clarity in your life, creating some focus in your life, it becomes easier to get to that action, what that first action is. But we're so obsessed with information that action just seems impossible. And information
That's a good point.
is stimulating, right? It's exciting. Like when you learn something new, it's fucking exciting. Yeah. And so you don't think like, well, now I need to act on that. It's like, no, I'll just go get more information. Like I'm getting a fucking buzz from this, right?
Yeah, it's like Neo in the Matrix when he gets like close, like I know Kung Fu, like
exactly.
You're just like downloading all this information, but now no action is ever happening.
There's no experience, right? People and people, I find like millennials, and I am a millennial, by the way, barely made it, 1982. So I was proud of that. But I find like millennials they're really knowledgeable, right? Yeah. They can sit in a room and they can chew the fat. They can go off on different topics, which is great. I'm curious though to find out like how much action and how much experience is behind that information. Yeah. Right? That would be an interesting
conversation. I'd be interested to dive into that. Yeah. And we're not like, I'm not in any way trying to shit on millennials. No. But I think that it's. But I like to shit on you, right? In terms of like
Jeez, Rob,
that sounded weird, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's. I think that it's just an example of where we are right now trending in society. I think the millennials are just really interested in gathering as much knowledge as possible. Right. We have it at our fingertips faster than we've ever had it before. When I was in college, graduating college, I was just getting an email. That was it. And I was not really surfing the internet. This was 2003. And like some of the early bloggers like Jay Ferrugia, he's like, one of the leaders in the fitness world now because he was one of the first guys in 2003 to be writing blogs. And it was like everybody was like trying to figure out who to listen to at the time, and there was only a handful of people actually doing it. So now there's so many people doing it. Most of the people have never really experienced it or aren't really doing the like diving into the study around it, but they're just like they're hearing it from somebody else and then they're regurgitating it on their page or their profile, and then that's the cycle, and we're just gathering as these consumers, just gathering this information. And I think you're right in terms of never taking action. I think that's a huge point. I think the nail on the head is the simplifying. It's not as fucking complicated as everybody's making it. Yeah. If you exercise, do whatever the fuck you like, whatever brings you joy and makes you feel good. It doesn't matter if it's yoga. It doesn't matter if it's powerlifting. It doesn't matter if it's Olympic lifting. It doesn't matter if it's just hanging out at a fucking RetroFit class, right? If it makes you happy, then just continue doing that. As long as you're not injuring yourself along the way, right? Right. In terms of the nutrition, do what makes you feel good, and don't overcomplicate it. It's probably just eating whole foods and paying attention to how you feel. Yeah. But I think that the big part of it that people are ignoring is what we're talking about, which is the mental health, and then also basically the community, paying attention to yourself as well as paying attention to the people around you and really connecting in that way. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds so simple when we say it like we just break it down into those four categories, but it's not. But for some reason, people just, they shit the bed on this.
Oh, we're plugged in, right? We're so plugged in, and so it's so much information, and it's so exciting, and it's so big, and you have no idea. Yeah. That stepping away from it and simplifying is not as exciting. Yeah. Right? It's like, come on, I can't live life like that. I'm
That's not real.
Amish, right? It's like that. I don't do that. So it's a challenge for people conceptually to step away from this routine that we are in, like this daily routine that we are in, turn the volume down, slow down, and that be okay, right? Because our brains love to be on, right? At the detriment of our bodies, right? It's like our brain loves to be plugged in. It loves to be on. It loves stimulation.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
So to unplug and step outside of your own brain and say, okay, me as a human being, me as a human body as a whole, what's actually good for me, and not letting your brain drive you, right? That's kind of the intelligence of the mind body and the mind body connection, is really stepping outside of the mind and looking at yourself as an individual, as a human being, and saying, what do I need? Right.
Yeah.
And if slowing down is what you need, then taking that action and unplugging.
Yeah. What are some things that, in your opinion, that people can do or not do? You know, it's interesting. Devon and I had this conversation multiple times, and I struggle with just going into what you were mentioning about social media. Like, I definitely struggle with comparison, with like looking what other trainers or people in the field are doing and going, fuck, like I'm not doing that much. Like I could be, you know, because then it's if you're talking about business, you want your business to be as successful as possible. Right. And so you know that social media is a big part of that equation, because that's how people find you, you know, so you have to do, you know, you have to be present in a way. Yeah. But if it doesn't feel so intuitive, or it doesn't feel like it's just second nature to be on social media all the time, it definitely feels like there's like a lacking, a piece missing from, you know, from what you should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And I think there's this real kind of this fear that if I step away for too long, I'll lose. Right. And I think that's a valid fear if we're looking at the social media world, right? It's like the
attention span of a gnat.
Yeah. It's like that makes sense. But I also think you've got to step back from all of it and say, okay, what do I want this to look like for me? Do I, in relation to my life, like my lifestyle and my career, what do I want this to look like? Yeah. And if being on your social media all the time is like, if it supports your lifestyle and you feel good about it, fine. For me, that's not how I want my life to be. Yeah. Right. Especially in relation to my family, my work, and me. I need to make sure that I am able to step away, unplug, and plug into the relationship with my son, plug into myself, right? And that be okay. Yeah. The struggle exists when there are conflicting values, right? So like conflicting values might be, I'm a hard worker, like I need to work hard. That's important to me. Yeah. And I need to be a good dad, right? You can't be those at the same time. Yeah. I can't be a good CEO and a good father at the same time. Yeah. I can be one at one point and then another at another. But when I bring that into my role as running a company with my business partner, or that role into my relationship with my son, there's some real struggle that exists. And I experienced that big time. That's a good observation for yourself. Yeah. And I think for me, and social media is another part of it. I get in arguments with my manager all the time. They're like, you need to post. And I'm like, I also need to have a life. Right. So, so I've had to make peace with certain things. And I think there's a nice balance between, you know, still having a healthy lifestyle and engaging with your audience. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be every day. That's my opinion. Right. If you add value, consistent value, and I don't do this. I know this. Yeah. I don't necessarily. He's not practicing this. It's not necessarily practiced. I'm still sorting it out for myself. If you add consistent value, and they know on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. you're going to be launching your podcast. That's perfect, right? Yeah. You don't need to obsess on the day to day. Yeah. And so, there's a big difference between followers and people who are really interested in what you're doing. Yeah. So. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I think we all struggle with wanting to be everything at once. Right. You know, being the CEO, being the dad, being the Instagrammer, right? We want to be all of those things at one time. So if we're leaning into being a CEO, does that mean we're bad dad? No. Right.
if we're leaning into being a good dad, does that mean you're a bad CEO?
Right.
No, it's like they can both exist at the same time, but you have to lean on one and the other one will be okay.
Yeah.
And trusting that is a really important thing. And I think that this is actually a really great lesson, not only for business, but also your health.
Yeah.
There's going to be moments and times in your life when you're not necessarily doing great with your nutrition. Maybe your workouts are staying consistent, but your nutrition kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Does that mean that you're a terrible person? No, it doesn't define you. This goes back to the conversation we were having about like the meaningless of it all, right? It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It doesn't define you. I think all of us, we're struggling with, maybe this is just me, so I shouldn't say all of us, right? But people are, they're struggling with thinking that there's something wrong with them and that they need to be doing it better.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is that you will get better. Sure, you'll get better, but that just takes time.
Yeah.
And being okay with where you are in the moment is the only thing that's actually going to bring you joy now. You could be aiming for joy down the road and suffering in the moment, but that line of joy is going to continually move further away. Right. So the being able to focus on what's right here in front of you right now, being okay with being the CEO. I'm happy you say it. I love business. I'm going to be happy right now doing and solving business problems. Yeah. But you also love being a dad, which means that I'm going to be present right now with my son. I'm going to love being a dad and being a role model and all the things that come along with it. Yep. So we have to be able to just kind of take one hat off and then put another hat on.
It's a skill.
It is a skill. It is a skill, and it takes time because everything seems so fucking muddy these days. Everything is, and I'm sure that this stuff was happening in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Everything's we like to pretend. We like to pretend like life wasn't as fucking complicated, but it was just as complicated because in 20 years from now, life's to people nowadays are gonna seem so fucking complicated. Yeah. It's gonna be moving so fast. Try asking your parents how to hook up a VCR. Ask a millennial what a VCR is. You know what I'm saying? There's like that window. So we just have to be, I think, a little kinder to ourselves.
Yeah, I was mentored by the guy who started the franchise of Gold's Gym. His name was Ed Connors, and he told me something one day that really rang true, and it's something that I try to remember on a day-to-day basis. There are two things in this world that are key. Any relationship, compassion and communication. Now that doesn't just exist outside of you. That's also within you.
Yes.
And the conversation that you have with yourself and having that gentleness and that ease and that kindness is really important.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to point out, and you were absolutely right. It's like we are so obsessed with great, right? It's got to be great. It's got to be perfect. That we don't leave any room for our B game, our C game, our D game,
or learning,
or okay, right? Like okay's not good. That fucking sucks. I don't want okay.
Yeah.
So like when I'm working with someone, I want them to be okay before they're great. Is if you get great, awesome.
Right.
But like, let's work with okay.
Yeah. Like great's not mandatory.
Let's just create a standard of living, right? That isn't about performance, that isn't about progress. That's just about like you as a human being, right? Like showing up and just feeling good. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And then embracing this idea of okayness.
Yeah.
We'll call it oak-anus. OAKANUS. Embrace the oak-anus.
That's a terrible name. Yeah.
It's a horrible name.
Maybe
I think we get some t-shirts made.
We'll work on that. That's okay.
It's okay.
It's okayness.
But I think this idea that things have always got to be moving and I've got to be performing and it's got to be great is the very reason people are feeling overwhelmed, stressed.
Yeah.
And why a lot of the days a lot of their day is spent chasing.
Yeah.
And not living.
Do you think that, and actually, do you think that there's a bit of a, when we talk about being great, there's this expectation that everybody can be great? Do you think there's a problem? Also, like there's an expectation that we can all be millionaires.
Yeah.
Like there's so much happening. Like people are selling so much on all the social media, Facebook, whatever. We're all looking at watching these webinars on how to have a six pack, right? Yeah. How to make like a 6-figure income in the next 6 months, how to do all of this stuff. And we think, oh, well, everybody should be able to do this. Everybody should be able to accomplish this. And I think it falls into the realm. It's like everybody can be great. and you should be. And if you're not great,
listen to that.
Yeah, just listen. That's what I'm saying. Like, so it's like it's like the world of millionaires. Why aren't we all millionaires, right? It's like, well, we can't all be millionaires. We can't all be great. We can't all be fucking rocket scientists.
Look, we live in Hollywood, right? And
I mean, unless you're an actor, you could be whatever the fuck you want.
Hollywood thrives on this idea that you can make it, right? It's a big industry. Like, you can make it.
Yeah, that's why I quit.
Right? Well,
I realized,
and so
the chances were slim.
I think when you look at business, let's use business as an example. It's a machine, right? And each and every one of us that are interested in being great and doing great things, becoming millionaires or billionaires or creating the next big product, we get sold this idea that we actually have a chance, right? And so we miss out, like going back to us as human beings and creating the three different kind of parts of our lives: the self. Yep. The you as a human being with the people around you, people, places, and things, and then you as your career and your role, whatever it is, and how you contribute to society, right? Yeah. I think that you can choose to be consumed by that promise, quote unquote promise, that you can make it, and miss out on everything else.
Yes.
And I think what's most important is create a fulfilling life, right? For yourself, for the people around you that you love and support. Yeah. And then have this thing that you're really passionate about that gives you purpose, but don't expect great to happen. Just fall in love with it. Yes. Right. And show up every day and do it because you fucking love it. Right. Not because you're going to get rich, not because it's like you might at the end, there's a finish line. And when you get there, you've made it. Yeah. If we can change our perception of what great looks like, right? Great is like, I get to have this amazing family. I have an amazing child. Like, I have my health. That to me, that's great. Right. Yeah. But as soon as we sacrifice that for the delusion that great lives on the other end of some great business deal, then we suffer. That's my opinion.
Well, we're all in search of the thing that we want to be like. So it's nothing new, right? We were asked this question when we were in high school, or at least, this is what everybody hears about. Like the guidance counselor says to you, okay, if you had $1 million or if you were rich as can be and you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do? And then they say, and then basically the response is, well, whatever it is that you decide that you would do for the rest of your life, if money made no difference, that would be the thing you should do. Yeah. You should just focus on that thing. But I think everybody's hoping that, here's the thing, none of us, but a big fucking chunk of us don't have endless amounts of money. So we kind of think of that going, okay, so what they're getting at is that I have to find something in my life that I really love doing. I have to fall into like becoming such a master at that other people want to pay me how to do that because I'm so great at this thing. Yeah. So, but they skip the falling in love with it. Yeah. They skip the actual the thing that makes them
matters most.
That matters most. Right. Exactly. So they're missing that piece. Yeah. And so therefore they're out there teaching this thing that they aren't really truly in love with. The only thing that they're really truly in love with is trying to make a lot of money or trying to just become famous or just be because they just want that recognition. And I think this is a lot of the teachings on Instagram and on social media is like people are teaching something that they haven't learned yet. And that's okay. You can teach stuff as you're learning it. But you have to, again, come back to, are you in love with the thing that you're learning? Is it truly something you're passionate about? Because if it's not, the reality is going to sniff you out.
Yeah. Or at what point did you fall out of love with it too, right? Because sometimes it's like either it's taken a shape that you don't understand and can't appreciate anymore. Yeah. Or you have just disconnected from it, right? From the meaning in it. And I know that you're suggesting not everything has to have meaning, but I do think
that's something different. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything if you fail. It just means
not giving things emotional weight. Is what
exactly.
You're suggesting. Yeah. But I think there's also this awareness people can create if they are struggling with their purpose, right? If it's like I've fallen out of love with my purpose, it's like looking at, okay, what was it like when I first came into it and where is it at now? Yeah. And trying to get curious. I think about my son, right? Like when he gets down on the ground with his crayons and it's just a blank sheet of paper, like he goes to town, right? And he doesn't give a shit. He's just going. And it's like,
give a shit about anything.
And it's the best picture ever, right? Like he's looking at it and he's going to be so proud of it. He loves that picture. He created it, right?
Yeah.
And he brings it up to me, and not a doubt in his mind, he shows it to me, and it's like, what do you think, Dad? And of course, like, I see the passion he put into it.
Yeah.
I see that like creative juices flowing. He's just all over the place.
And you're like, you went out of the lines.
I can't. Yeah. You suck.
I give that a 50.
But just the experience itself, and I'm like, just that passion that he brings to it. It's like, I love it. I love it. I love it because you love it.
Right.
And I think there's this element of judgment that we bring into the thing that we love that all of a sudden toxifies our perception of the experience.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get back to curiosity, right, and get rid of the judgment piece, then
read that.
What does it say?
Can you see? Oh, you don't have your glasses on.
No. Curiosity is the secret to success. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we can learn a lot from our children in the creative.
I totally agree.
Experience is just getting rid of that judgment along the way, because it compounds, right? It's triggered, right? The first time we create judgment in our experience, we go back to that. It's like, oh shit, that's right. I sucked at that.
Yeah.
And then that's why I'm not good at it anymore. That's why I don't love this anymore, right? So sometimes it's about just looking at the relationship and what's going on inside of you, how much of you is actually just picking yourself apart or the experience apart, and getting curious again.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all we need.
Yeah. No, I think it really is great. And I think that if we all just really started paying attention to ourselves and what brings us joy, and being, when we say curious, not only just being curious about ourselves, right, but also being curious about other people. I had a really great interview with the woman Ingrid Markham not too long ago on the show, and she was basically a professional athlete from 2 years old till 38 years old, and her whole identity was about that. And so, but throughout her life, she didn't have a lot of social skills, and she struggled with that. And one of the real struggles was that she would come to people and figure out, can she be valuable to that person, rather than coming in to the. And her sister would say, "You got to ask more questions. You got to ask more questions." But it wasn't coming from. It was more of an instructional thing where she was coming to people and asking them questions and kind of berating them with questions, rather than actually just being curious. And when I say curiosity is the secret to success, I don't mean it's the secret to financial success.
Right.
I think it's just like, if you can, some of the most successful people, financial, that I know in my life are truly the most curious about others. Yeah. Like it's the people who can go from being a teacher to a student in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
They see. I don't like when I that's, and it's something that I definitely struggle with. But like I really like would love to be able to go, and I think that I'm a lot better at it than I used to be. But just like meeting somebody like you, going from, instead of trying to figure out like, how do I impress this guy and make him see and make him understand like what I've done and accomplished in my life, what can I learn from him? Yeah. Right. What is it about him that, makes him tick, that he's interested in, and actually be curious about that. And through that there's a friendship. There's all kinds of stuff that comes from that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
It expands you.
Yeah.
And it opens you up.
Yeah. Yeah. It builds all these bridges. You feel like you're a part of something bigger than just you. Yeah.
Yeah, my experience coming out to LA, like I'm from South Texas, and there's a certain mentality, there's a certain culture that exists there, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the way it is, right? It's culture. It's just the way that it is. It doesn't make it okay all the time.
Yeah,
but I love Texas. I love my people. I love my family. Coming to Los Angeles, there was a fear, right? And I have no problem expressing this. That fear created judgment, right? And I wasn't
goddamn hippies.
Yeah. Well, it was a variety of things. And what I was really proud of myself. And I think you have to find those moments where it's like, you know what? I'm proud of myself for doing that. This was one of those moments for me. Like, I decided to get curious. I decided to talk to people I wouldn't have talked to before. I decided to engage in the world, go places that I wouldn't have gone to before. And what happened was it opened me up to this whole other side of life and this joy that I was able to experience with other people that I would have never, ever engaged with. And so it was my journey, even coming here, that like, if I lead with curiosity, right? If I open myself up, my world becomes a lot bigger. And through that, right? Through that, I get to feel connected. I get to feel success in some sense of the word, right? Yeah. And that was an experience for me with curiosity that I look back and I'm like, yeah, was a moment in time when I was like, I need to get curious.
Yeah. These are all really great practices that I think people need to just start thinking about, get curious about, get curious literally about all the different practices that we talked about on the show. We do need to wrap it up, but I want people to be able to find you. And by the way, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. This was a great conversation. We've been, 3 years in the making. So hopefully we delivered.
I think so. We got to drop some F-bombs. I think
fucking A, we did.
I was really disappointed. I didn't think we were going to go there.
We did. So, you are more active on your Instagram. If people are interested in working with you or basically seeing your posts that you post every 2 or 3 days. I think the most recent was of a stallion, horse. It was hashtag transportation, I think is what you posted. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay. So, so if you want to go and check out Jessie, go, it's just your name.
Yeah, it's Jessie Pavelka.
Okay, and they can find you there.
They'll find me there, yep. Okay. You can go to Facebook, same name, Jessie Pavelka.
And jessiepavelka.com is your website, but also if you're on Instagram, the link to your website's right there. Yes. And then you can find out everything that you're doing basically from there. Do you do much one-on-one coaching, or is it mostly...
I don't do much one-on-one anymore.
Okay.
Just because the business has kind of taken off and we've got corporate clients that require a lot of attention.
Yeah.
I do one-to-ones within those contracts. But I just at this point in time I don't have the
That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. So if somebody has a corporate business and they're listening to this and they have teams and they're interested in basically helping create a healthy communication within their team and really making these values part of their corporation, then they can reach out to you and find you that way.
Absolutely. Everything that we do is geared around the 4 elements. We create online communities. We have an app.
Yeah.
We do live events. We do webinars. We have in the room sessions with different experts. So it's a whole hog experience for the clients that we work with.
Of course, you'd say that you're from Texas.
I'm from Texas. I have to.
Jessie, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks
this was awesome.
Rob. Yeah.
All right, one more time. Thank you, Jessie, so much for coming on. You want to hear a funny little backstory here. So Jessie and I, at the end there, were talking about how it took 3 years for him to get on the show. Well, we recorded this episode in May last year. We recorded this in May, and I just ran into Jessie the other day. I don't see him all that much because he's kind of like a silent owner of the gym. He's not there as much. So I thought I had posted this over the summer at the very latest, and I totally forgot. And I have in my file systems, I have all of my podcasts is set up in categories. One is unedited, the other ones are edited and then finalized, like had been posted. Well, somehow that episode had gotten shuffled over to posted, like finalized. That it already had gone up, but it was never edited. It was just sitting here raw. And I discovered it because I just was like, oh, I'm going to have a meeting last week with Jessie to talk to him about the gym stuff. And then I was like, oh, when did his episode go out? I was going to talk to him about it. And I was like, wait a second, it didn't go out. It's nowhere on the website. It's nowhere on iTunes. What the fuck? And I looked and I found it, and we recorded this in May last year.
Gosh.
And so I said, I told him when I saw him, and I was like, all right, your show is going up very soon. So anyway, so it's been almost 4 years in the making to get him on this show, but I think that it was totally worth the wait. And Jessie, thank you so much, buddy, for coming on. This was awesome.
And for you guys, just to kind of remind us of our beginning conversation. If you guys remember, it's February. It's been a month down in this year. You still have 11 months to get to where you want to be. Trust yourself. Find some accountability. Believe in yourself. And make yourself a priority this year. This is the year.
Yeah.
If you haven't yet, this is the year. There's no reason to wait. You don't need to hit rock bottom, because for some people that never comes.
Yeah. And if you're looking for accountability partners, you can go inside the Open Sky Fitness podcast group on Facebook and see if anybody else wants to be an accountability partner with you.
Great idea.
It's a community that's listening to the show. They know the conversation, so you don't have to sell it to them. You just have to maybe post it in there and just say, hey, I just listened to the latest episode. I'm looking for an accountability partner, and is anybody want to join me? And you guys can either have a private conversation, or you could do it openly on the open forum, and maybe even inspire others to do the same. So anyway, that's the show for this week. Anything else you want to add?
That's it.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening to the show. Tune in next week. We have another awesome Open Sky Fitness podcast for you.
All right, thanks for listening to the Open Sky Fitness podcast. Please check us out on Instagram at Open Sky Fitness, where you can follow Rob, link to the podcast, learn about upcoming guests, and post questions for him. You can also ask us questions about your own health and fitness, and we'll try to answer them on the show. For our blog, show notes, and more information about training with Rob Dione, go to openskyfitness.com. Our music is by H. Scott Salinas. You can check him out at hscottsalinas.com.
So for Rob Dione and the rest of the Open Sky Fitness team, this is Jeff Meacham saying that no matter where you are in your life, you can always be healthier. And we're here to help you get there. All right, I'm done.